Welcome to the Club of Heroes. Today we're going to talk about Django Unchained. Great movie. Everybody here in the room has seen it, yes?
Yep.
And who's with me today?
My name's Julie.
My name's Matt Cortinas.
I'm Evan Arnold.
And I am your host with the most, Chris Bearden.
He has the most of it!
Whatever it is, I got the most of it.
Yes.
But actually, I think Evan should kind of lead this discussion, because I know you took some notes on Django Unchained.
Oh, jeez, put me on
you've
the
been
spot.
you've been chomping at the bit to talk about this.
You took notes at the theater?
No.
That's why we went and saw it the second time. He's like, I'm going to take notes.
Watch that one. No, I can't I guess first I'd like to talk a little bit about spaghetti westerns in general, I guess, and maybe a little bit about Quentin Tarantino's film career before we start talking about the movie proper. I don't know about you, Chris, or anyone else in the room, but I'm a sucker for good westerns if they're done right. I enjoy that kind of genre of storytelling. In spaghetti westerns in particular, I think the first one proper is called The Sheriff of Broken Jaw in 1958. And there's more after that, of course. It became really popular in the States. Originally, the term spaghetti western was kind of a term of derision. They were, people were kind of making fun of them initially, but then it became kind of a thing to describe the film itself. And the hallmarks of a spaghetti western over a classic western that you'd see prior to that time period, the characters are a lot more complicated in their motivations. They're not obviously evil or obviously good. They're just people making choices. The storytelling is a lot more complicated in that sense. They usually have usually there's more than one character striving towards the same goal. Like in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, everyone's trying to get the treasure. And because of that, they come in conflict with each other. The other thing that you see in spaghetti westerns is usually there's a lot of backstabbing involved. People double and triple cross each other like it's just something they do. It's pretty common for that to happen. Usually there's kind of a tragic or complex hero that we see in the spaghetti western. Going back to my example with The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, we have the man with no name who is, obviously he's not the nicest person, but at the same time he has traits that we consider heroic. He's kind of an anti-hero almost. Also, in general, the films are more violent than we see in classic westerns. There's a higher body count. There's more blood.
Spaghetti.
Yes, spaghetti sauce all over the damn place. And as far as the style that they're shot in, it's very common to have sweeping panoramic landscapes. You get very wide shots, usually of a desert or arid country. It's called spaghetti western. Usually they're shot in Italy or a place like western Spain, where it's a very hilly, rocky countryside, and it's cheap to shoot in. It's pretty similar to the American Southwest, as far as geographically speaking. They have a lot of extreme close zooms-ups, and you see that in Django Unchained. There's a lot of extreme zooms on like certain characters' faces when something happens. And there's a lot of slow-mo as well. You see that a couple times in Django Unchained. So at the same time, it's an homage to that style of shooting film. But of course, Tarantino puts it in his Quentin Tarantino blender and mixes in a lot of other things with it.
Yeah, it's funny. He said this isn't Quentin Tarantino about this film. Said this isn't a western. He called it a southern.
Yeah.
Because of the setting, and I don't know. Did he coin that term, or is that actually a genre of are all movies dealing with like slavery in the South called southerns, or is that like a new?
I think he just made that up on the spot. That sounds like something he'd do.
Smart man, pointy chin.
When you were talking about how the sweeping landscapes, I think he really utilizes that as well in Django Unchained, especially whenever he's remembering his wife. You see a lot of the landscape,
right.
When they get a candied land, is that what it's called? Candyland?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because you see a lot of the surrounding
you see,
buildings,
fields and I'm trying to remember that one scene where she's in the grass.
Right, she's got a dress on.
There's several scenes where they sort of sweep the landscape.
Even prior to her being really introduced as a character, and for the first half where it's kind of almost like a buddy movie,
Yeah.
between him and Dr. Schultz, there's a lot of like mountains and stuff for the South. I'm like, the South has a lot of mountains and snow. More than I remember.
It's supposed to be primarily Texas and Mississippi, but I think in the credits it was filmed in Wyoming.
Right.
So,
exactly.
yeah.
Well, don't they have? Aren't they supposed to be? They're not necessarily in Texas and Mississippi the entire time. I thought they were sort of like going wherever, and then they were like, oh, we got to go back down to Mississippi.
I guess that's kind of implied, yeah.
I need to go watch the movie again.
Yeah, me too. Alright, so just the plot of the movie is simple enough. Django is a slave freed by Dr. King Schultz.
Yeah, Dr. King Schultz.
Dr. Schultz. Dr. Schultz frees Django. Sort of buddies up with him and then helps him on this quest to get his wife back from the plantation Candyland. What'd you think about Django as a hero archetype, if he fits?
Have any comments, Matt? Do you want me to take this one?
Well, I found it really interesting when they had that one camping scene after they caught their first bounty. And Dr. Schultz, he asked Django if he has, any family members or anything. And that's when Jamie Foxx's character, Django, tells him that he does have a wife. And then Schultz tells him about that German story. Because what was her name? Broomhilda?
Broomhilda.
Yeah. It was the Siegfried and Broomhilda story.
Right. And as far as that, after he tells him that story, that kind of, gives Django hope and faith that maybe he'll be able to find her. And as far as whatnot, I wouldn't say he's really a hero, because he's just striving to save his wife. And along the way, he happens to, get rid of these people, kill them and whatnot, or just stop them. And be it bad people trying to stop him, from his point of view, they're just, trying to bring him down. See, I won't say he's really a hero. He's just working on his own dream to save his wife.
I'd have to agree with some points and disagree in a couple.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, yeah, his driving force is his wife. But at the same time, Django is almost a nemesis to the entire institution of slavery. He's the essence of a person who has been beaten down by that institution, has risen up almost as an avenging angel to smite it.
Alright, I forgot about that point.
He's not going around setting slaves free.
That's true.
Yeah, and there's even some scenes where it's like, he sort of, like, he doesn't really, like, when the first instance where you see him and he's freed and Dr. Schultz is the one who tells them, like, you can either do this or you can do that. And he gives them the choice. And, like, Django sort of turns around and he looks at them, but he doesn't really...
You're talking about the very beginning?
In the very beginning, and then at the, like, sort of at the end, when he's, when those other guys are with the Australians. Mm-hmm. And those guys are, like, in that, like,
like
structure. Yeah. He doesn't really, help them either. Like, they're just sort of like, whoa, who is that guy? Because he sort of, to me, he kind of separates himself from them. And I don't know, well, it's sort of, when he has to, because he's trying to play a part and he's trying to get his wife. And so he does have to separate himself and be like, this is my final goal and I'm going to do whatever it takes. But at the same time, it's like, he doesn't tell them, like, hey, why don't you guys come along and we can all get revenge on the assholes who, like, did this to us. He's sort of like, no, I'm going to go this alone. So I think that's kind of interesting that you point that out, too. He doesn't really help.
Yeah, like, I don't want to say he's disdainful, but he's kind of smug. Like, he kind of looks down on the other slaves. It's almost like does a liberated person who's, out of it look down on the people who are in it, and I don't know, just kind of look down on them. Like,
well, maybe it's from the point of, he was given this chance, so if he gives them the same chance that he was given, will they rise up to the occasion and become what he became?
Or are they going to be like Samuel L. Jackson?
That's where they'll rat him out or something. For safety.
So speaking of that, what did you think? Because Django initially kind of leans very heavily on Christopher Waltz's character, Dr. King Schultz, because he's the person that can initially bring him out of this awful situation, and he needs to lean on him a little bit to learn his trade, so he can get money, and then again so he can read and stuff and become a literate, educated member of society, and kind of be this antithesis to slavery itself. What did you think on that? That a white guy had to do this for him. Do you think there's any commentary there? Or?
I didn't even think about that until you said something.
Well, I think he had to kind of trust him because he's a slave, and this other white guy came and I guess you could say stole him. But then he gives him choices, something that he's never had before. So he starts to trust this guy, and then he realizes, well, he wants to use me for a means to an end, but he's helping me. He's giving me these tools and stuff for me to live on my own and sustain myself. And then when he kills those other slavers, he's like, okay, cool. White guys killing white guys.
So, he sets Django free, but he doesn't really. Like he says, I despise the institution of slavery, but I'm going to use it for my own.
Right.
So he doesn't. What he does, I think, is more important than just breaking his shackles and setting him free. He actually rebuilds him as a person, gives him an identity, mission to go on.
Right, and that kind of goes back to the gray morality of traditional spaghetti westerns. Yes, he hates slavery, but he's willing to use it if he has to, in the nicest way possible. But in the end, slavery is still slavery, no matter how you skin that cat. And Django, while being our protagonist, isn't really that likable of a person. I mean, he kind of condemns that guy to death by the tree when Dr. King Schultz is going to step in and basically rescue him.
Yeah, but you see, that's the whole thing, is he realizes at that point that, I think he can kind of see Leonardo DiCaprio's character. He sees him and he's like, oh, Django's like, oh no, if I say no, well then I'm seen as a weak person, and I'm seen as sort of on their level, and there's going to be suspicion. But if I say yes, then we can continue forth, and we can, I can just that much closer to getting my wife.
That's a good point, because, you see that Dr. King Schultz is, really almost suffers post-traumatic stress after seeing that guy ripped apart.
Yeah, you can really see him, in what's his name? What's Leonardo DiCaprio's character?
Calvin Candy.
Calvin Candy, he's eyeing him. He's eyeballing both of them. And, Django's just, Mr. Tough Dude, because he's been, inundated with that stuff since he was born. That's all, he's had to deal with that his entire life. While Dr. Schultz, he is not used to that at all, because you get the feeling that he's from Germany, it seems like he's been living in the north thus far, and so it's he hasn't dealt with that at all, and so he's very he sees it, and he's just like you said, he's shocked by it, and it just it infects him, and he just can't, he breaks his character. And it's, I really, I don't enjoy that part, but I think that that's one scene that the audience shares with Schultz's character, where you're sort of oh god, it's a really disturbing scene. And you would see, I would feel the same way, because it's I've never been through that stuff, and it's you really get the sense of because when Schultz tells Django's character, you're acting a little too aggressive here, you need to calm down, and Django is trying to tell him, you don't really realize, how I have to act. I've been through this and you really haven't. And then you don't see until later, Django's right.
Well, Django did mention, how can you kill people for a living, but you still aren't able to cope with that kind of stuff. And I don't think Dr. Schultz actually shot any slaves. It was all just murderers and bounty hunters. But because he kind of lives like, well, he does live by the strict code of the law because he's got these legal papers all forged, so he's seeing that this innocent man just torn apart and kind of like my heart decided on justice. He just can't deal with that.
I have to agree with that. I also think that I appreciate the fact that he hasn't sugarcoated the institution of slavery, because it is one of the most monstrous things, in my opinion, you can do to another human being. And it's even at its nicest form, it is still rife for any kind of abuse. And I think that most filmmakers wouldn't want to tackle a subject like that. I think Tarantino, he might be reaching a little bit beyond his capacity to film, but he's willing to at least try to do it. And I was shocked at that scene. And the other scene that really bothered me was the fight scene in the Cleopatra Club.
Oh, the Mandingos fighting.
Yeah, I had
trouble watching both of those.
There were times watching that movie where I did feel uncomfortable. And I could say I speak for all of us. I know when I saw it with Zach, he said, he did feel uncomfortable. Like you were saying, what were you telling me about? It puts you in...
Oh, well, the movie as a whole kind of jumps back and forth. Kind of did this in Inglourious Basterds, too. Kind of jumps back and forth between a hero fantasy and grim reality. Like, it's kind of a hero's tale and a survivor's tale, and it's kind of jumping back and forth. And it puts you in your comfort zone and takes you far the fuck away from your comfort zone at any given moment. It's like it's an exhausting movie because it's jumping back and forth, and it never stops being interesting, but it is exhausting.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, and I've noticed this in a lot of things that I've read about it, Django Unchained as well, is a lot of people talk about how uncomfortable they are with the violence, and it's really odd to me because I was just forming this in my brain right now, thinking about, Tarantino movies are like essentially violent, that's how they are, like that's a Tarantino flick, and a lot of other movies are increasingly violent today, but there's a difference but you don't have people saying, like there are certain scenes in films where people are like, oh, I just couldn't handle that, it was too violent, but I haven't really felt that in a long time. And it's like, but this movie, it was just like with Inglourious Basterds, like, I could watch that movie through and through. And with this movie, it's just like, I don't know why, it does make you uncomfortable. And I think that's what a lot of people are, like, kind of iffy about, is, like, the two different, it's like, it's a different level of violence, because it does hark on the institution of slavery, and what, like, it makes you think about that and things that actually went on, instead of it being a sort of like a fantasy almost of a spaghetti western. There's a level of difference.
It's the difference between seeing violence in Schindler's List and violence in Die Hard.
Yeah, exactly.
You have unnecessary violence and necessary violence. I know there really shouldn't be the necessary violence, but necessary violence could be categorized as far as protecting one's families, loved ones, or oneself. But the unnecessary violence would be like the slaves, what the stuff they took, they were indoctrinated with, and the Jews. And just seeing unnecessary violence really can make anybody feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Just touching on Inglourious Basterds briefly, one of the things I thought was interesting was that, his team of soldiers or whatever, they were all Jewish. And that's not something I think you've seen in cinema before, where you have, usually they're portrayed as being very victimized and helpless in this situation. That's almost kind of a vengeance fantasy to have us.
Isn't The Bastards a movie, though?
Yes.
Inglourious Basterds.
Actually, it's another Italian film. But I don't think that, when he took the title, I don't think it had the same premise as Tarantino's flick. I think it borrowed the title and maybe a couple other things, and that's about it. So you have these Jews that are powerful. They can exact vengeance on the Nazis for what they did, and it's cathartic in a sense. The same with Django's revenge in the last act of the film. As awful as all the other stuff is that you bear witness to, you feel a kind of catharsis with Django as he kills these horrible human beings. You don't feel sorry for them.
Oh yeah,
And
most definitely.
Inglourious Bastards, they kill Hitler, and
Right.
at the end of Django, spoiler alert, he blows up Candyland, and he doesn't end by even, what I find is interesting, he doesn't end by killing Calvin Candy. The final boss, last guy, if you will, is, his name is Steven, right?
Yeah.
Steven, the head house slave, Samuel L. Jackson's character. He's really like the final nemesis for Django, and he's more like Steven is representative of the old ways, and he's even saying, after Django shot him in the leg, he even says, there'll always be a Candyland, you can't change nothing, blah, blah, blah. Of course, he blows him up with dynamite, but I thought he was the true nemesis, not Calvin Candy.
That's really interesting. Like, I never really thought about it like that. That's really cool. Like, you're saying that right now.
Sure, because really we have, a protagonist, and we have almost kind of someone like in the Obi-Wan role, Dr. King Schultz is like his mentor, who's been doing this for a while. I think Obi-Wan is the first thing that popped in mind. It's probably a better analogy. But, Dr. King Schultz's enemy really isn't Steven, it's Calvin Candy. And he kills him. It starts his revenge off, is him killing Candy.
Why do you think he killed him? I mean, he could have avoided the whole thing.
I think it was just a straw that broke the camel's back.
A wound to his
He even
pride.
said, I couldn't help it.
Yeah, because it goes back to he starts flashing when they're like signing the papers. You see Schultz is like flashing to that scene of that guy getting ripped apart, and it's that breaks him. Like he's literally just like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like it's just too much.
He mentions the book, The Three Musketeers.
Yeah, Alexander Dumas.
Yeah.
He's I believe he was half black.
And he tells him the story. What do you think he would have done in this situation? I guess you're right. He breaks the can.
Not only does he out Candy as being a fake Francophile, but he also kills him. Like, he embarrasses him and then kills him, which I think is interesting. He doesn't just shoot him. He wants to demonstrate that, his way of thinking is bullshit. And he surrounds himself with bullshit. He's not even a real person. He's probably the most fake character in the film. At least with Steven, you get a sense that this mastermind, like, schemer, this is who he is. Candy, I don't think Candy ever really had an identity.
Yeah, like I didn't really take him as a serious character until he had that scene where he had the skull, and like I was like no longer seeing it as Leonardo DiCaprio playing a slave owner. I was seeing like, okay, that, like I saw him like fully formed into that role.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, then I was like, oh, like I actually jumped in the theater. I was like, oh my god.
What was that called? That practice?
Phrenology. Like the shape of your skull determines your personality, which would have been a science at the time, quotation marks. But I think it's interesting that both Candy uses science as a way of, kind of poo-pooing the idea of slavery, and one of the Brittle brothers has sewn verses of the Bible to his shirt and quotes it as a way of poo-pooing slavery.
Well, those are all things that were actually, both scientific, like the Bible, science, those were things that were actually in the past. Back then used as like this is why the institution of slavery is okay. Those.
The Bible's still going strong today. Bestseller every year.
No, I keep harking on that whole idea that Schultz's real Candy was Schultz's nemesis, and then Samuel Jackson Steven was really Django's nemesis, because that's very interesting, because it's sort of like a northerner, outsider, taking down the southern white plantation owner, and then it's one former slave, free man, taking down the ideals of that slave. I don't know.
Because Stephen still wasn't free. He was still owned Calvin, right? But he had more privileges.
Yes. He was basically free from retribution. I mean, you see Stephen getting whipped,
Exactly.
I can see him sending someone else to get the fuck beaten out of or killed, but not Stephen.
And that's why Stephen was so taken aback when he sees Django on a horse. He's like, well, I can't ride a horse.
It's comically, like, upset.
Exactly.
Or he's like, I'm gonna snatch you off that horse. He's, like, waddling over there.
I know, I just can't get over it. Like, when I was, like, the only person, I, like, laughed out loud when Candy died, and Steven was like, no! Calvin! I was just, like, laughing out loud, and I was like, oh, I'm the only one. Like, because it reminded me of that stupid, what's his name? Chappelle Show episode. There's like a Chappelle Show episode where he's like, there's gonna be that one butler. He's like, I'm gonna go tell on you guys.
So was I the only person who got a creepy incest vibe from Calvin, Candy, and his sister?
Oh,
no.
Was there.
I thought they were just super southern formal. Like, I don't know. Maybe they were implying it a little bit.
I thought they were totally... I thought that was really...
They both grew up on Candyland together. Didn't see a lot of other people.
I didn't even know if that was, like, his sister, or if it was, like, that was...
It was his widowed sister.
Oh, okay. Because I was like, oh, well, maybe it's, like, his brother...
He
killed his brother so he could get in on that. Like,
The funny thing is, even after Calvin was dead, Steven still has all his privileges, and he doesn't go anywhere.
Right.
He still stays the same.
I think he's expected to kind of run the plantation for his surviving sister.
Oh,
maybe.
Okay.
Because I think that I'm not an expert on the antebellum South, but I think it would be very unusual at the time for a woman to have full control of a plantation.
Makes sense. Well, who's that guy? He started kind of running things after Calvin was dead. Well, I know they all had bad teeth, but like he had that real big cowboy hat and
the one who was gonna cut off his nut?
Yeah, that guy. That was a weird scene.
I know. I was like, whoa, wiener. But
real, pretty. There should be a dong in this movie. Spoiler alert.
No hang dog.
Oh man, I don't know. I think that was just his friend. I think it was just like a friend.
He's just like one of his enforcers, right?
Yeah, I thought he was like the head enforcer.
Yeah, after Butch died.
Oh yeah.
He kind of steps in and, Well, then Calvin even comes in and says, well, you can't be doing this. And I don't know if you'd be good to say he saved Django.
Oh, you mean Steven?
Oh, yeah.
Steven stepped in.
Steven stepped in and saved Django.
See, at that point, I was very... Tarantino...
No, he didn't want... He wanted the worst possible fate for Django, though.
Yeah, because
he told him that long story about what they're going to do. They're going to take away your name, give you a number, and you're going to break big rocks into smaller rocks.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're going to drop dead, and they're going to throw you in the N-word hole.
Yeah, no, when that came up, I was like, oh, Steven's gonna redeem himself, and he's actually gonna secretly save Django, and then it was like, no. That's not his character.
They had to bring the flyer back into play, because Dr. Schultz tells him early in the movie, you always keep it's good luck to keep your first wanted poster, and it came back around, he used it to escape.
I do like that, and the whole part, when they had, their papers saying that they were free people. And I was wondering if is he ever going to go back and get that? But he ends up doing that because, Schultz, was it Schultz, right? Schultz didn't just outright give him the papers. He kept them on his body.
He had to retrieve them from the house, right, when he went back?
Yeah. Didn't he take them off of Schultz whenever he remember when he touches Schultz?
He was in the... it was like a blacksmithing room, kind of? Or
I know I had horse thieves.
Yeah, it was like a... Yeah,
where they make the horseshoes.
Right.
I'm like, no, I had horse thieves.
Little ponies.
What I think is one of the interesting things is that each one of your main characters in the film has one scene that defines them. Stevens is when he gets outraged that Django is on a horse. Candy's is when you see him for the first time in the Mandingo fight scene. Django's is I'd probably say if I had to pick a scene that defines him, during his revenge the first time when he gives up because of his wife, and Schultz's is at the very beginning when he acts a very proper formal way.
For those among you who are astronomy aficionados, that is the North Star.
But I feel like all of the characters really developed. That's why I really like this movie, because it's I feel like me and Chris were talking about this, how I feel like Schultz's character in the beginning of the movie is slightly different than it is at the end. Just like with Django, I feel like Django's character develops into something new. You kind of see them metamorphosizing into something a little. Yeah, they turn into butterflies. No, into something different. I don't know. I didn't think that there was, that's why the movie was so good, was because it gave each character time to, and also so long, was it gave each character time to fully develop, really. Not so, the characters that we really want to see, Schultz, Django, even, not, a little bit with, Candy, a little. You kind of see him go into just this sort of to me it's whenever he freaked out, I was oh wow, he...
Yeah, he had a transformation. It was a little more brief than the other characters, but...
Yeah, you finally see him sort of
You saw the
bit.
sociopath, the fact that he grew up in Candyland, it's fun to say. He grew up, but no, he grew up in Candyland. Like you said, he's not even really a real person. He's this. I can't even don't have the vocabulary for it, but he's just a.
He surrounds himself with things that he thinks defines himself, but he doesn't. They're just stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Just like in the opener, when his lawyer, Mr. Moogie or something.
Yeah, I don't.
He had a funny name. Anyway, he explains to Dr. King Schultz, he's a Francophile. He says something in French. He says, "Oh, don't do that. It will embarrass him."
Right.
He's not even a real Francophile.
Yeah.
He's
he's a weeboo.
And I didn't expect the movie to be so long, and I thought it was actually great. About an hour and 30 minutes to a normal standard movie. I was just oh, why am I getting so tired? And then it just keeps continuing, and when I noticed it, I thought it might be 2 hours long. This more still kept coming and coming. It was great. And you said, Django and Schultz, they, had this transition of character. And then Calvin, he had his, his outrage was burst. But then he reverts straight back to his old little self.
That Southern hospitality.
Yeah.
Where's the parlor for white cake?
Will they have a white cake?
Yeah, there was a girl actually in front of us, and she was right in front of me, and she was fucking Tarantino. These movies are too, because it's when you think, it's the part where you think it's yeah, he's finally gonna get to that part where it's just a shoot 'em up, and it's the first time that he shoots up Candyland, and I was yes, the part's coming, and then he gives up, and whenever he gave up, that girl, I just heard, she's fucking Tarantino, why do you do this to me? I just was sort of don't come to these movies, because that's how it's gonna be, but I really liked that too, because it was I was expecting that, and then it kept going, and so I was oh, what is he gonna do now? How is he gonna get out of this pickle?
Pickle.
He's in a
He
pickle.
almost lost his pickle.
That was good.
Double Django undicked.
That's awful. So the second time I watched it, not so much the first time with me and Jose and JP, but the second time I watched it, there seemed to be a really high amount of audience direction with the film. Did you guys notice that at all when you went to go see it?
We had kind of some rowdy people.
Yeah,
Did you have some rowdy crowds?
Yeah.
Well, we had...
Not a rowdy crowd, because there wasn't even a crowd in the theater.
Okay.
I mean, I thought it was pretty, for when we went, I thought it was a little packed, because usually...
It wasn't packed. There was plenty of empty seats.
No, but there was a lot of people in there for it being a Wednesday
There was some hooting and
morning.
hollering. There's some.
Oh yeah.
There were some people who literally were like chuckling every time the N word came up, and it comes up like 200 times or whatever.
Yeah, no, that guy in the back.
Yeah, somebody thought that was funny. Like it did not get old for him. So he got his $8 worth. But
and he would like re-say some of the things that Candy said. Like he would like re-say them. And I was
giving him material to like tell his friends or something.
Yeah, I was like, alright, like that's not supposed to be that funny. But I don't know. But other than that, besides those guys, I don't like there was like a general like people were kind of quiet. Like that girl didn't say it that loud. I heard it because I was in front of her.
Right.
I actually got to see it during like the first release. And the theater was packed. I didn't expect it to be that packed because before I knew this was coming out, the day I went to go see it, I actually just heard it on the radio. Django Unchained, out today. Go see it, folks, if you haven't already seen it in the future. But
that was a very odd ad on the radio.
But it was very packed, and we went to go get our tickets. They couldn't promise us seating. We're like, we can't promise you any seating, but here's 2 tickets. You know, we still want your money. Even if you don't get seated.
So you just go in there and stand?
I guess.
Awesome.
No, John and Lauren said that they were going to go see it, but whenever they went to go, they said it was so packed that they went in and like the only seats that were available was the very first row. And they were like,
nobody
no.
likes those seats.
Yeah, they were like, we're not going to sit for like a 2-hour film in these, so they like left.
Oh, nay, 3 hours.
So.
As far as interaction, you know, they're your gasp and like, and like your laughs. I could say it was your standard movie.
Okay, because usually I see films and I guess the audience is kind of like me. They distance themselves from the movie when they're watching it. But this is probably the most interactive crowd I've had at the movies, aside from the time I think it was Death Note or something, and a bunch of weeboos wanted to set their seats on fire because the satellite wasn't like connecting the theater, it doesn't sound, or there was almost a riot. But anyway.
It wasn't even a good movie. Anyway. Was it the live-action Death Note?
Yes, it was live-action.
Oh, we don't endorse that at Club of Heroes at all.
No. But, yeah, I did have, like, I was sitting with Jamie, and I had an elderly lady, like, next to me and her friends. And, they kept saying, it was so violent. Why does it have to be so violent? I was like, lady, you're watching a movie about slavery. If you wanted to go watch It's a Wonderful Life, you can get that on TV.
Can't they just show him picking cotton?
This one guy that was so loud, he must have been in the second row, I must have been 12 rows up. I could hear him. Like, every time, like, Django shot somebody, he's like, yeah, get those fucking racists! Like, he was all excited.
Cool.
Like,
Good for him.
He was, like, clapping and stuff. He was very excited. But I think it's, like you pointed out, some people just don't get the material. When I think of when people saying, "Oh, this is a racist movie," I'm like, yeah, the content's obviously racist, but it's not portraying it in a racist way. Of course, slavery is racist. It's like saying the sky is blue. But he portrays it the same way that I think Mark Twain does in Huckleberry Finn. All the people that are racist in these movies are fucking stupid. You know, Calvin Candy. He only pretends to be sophisticated. He's not.
He has a black guy tell him.
Yeah.
He has his own slave tell him, like, dude, you're being duped.
Exactly.
Dumbass. Like, hello. You know?
I mean, everyone that's racist in this film is being portrayed as ignorant or unintelligent. I mean, I can't find a better argument for racism being stupid than a movie like that. The bag scene with, like, the not quite KKK yet.
Oh my god. One of the best scenes in the movie.
Oh, yeah. I was rolling with laughter.
Hands down.
When the one guy gets mad and storms off, he's like, my wife made those. Fuck you guys.
I'm going home.
Look, they have a Seinfeld moment, like, it's nobody's fault. We can all agree. Next time, full regalia. like they have a Seinfeld moment. But, you know, that doesn't make you cheer for racism or the Klan.
No.
I mean, it's not like Birth of a Nation. It makes them look stupid.
It's goofy, yeah.
Yeah, and uneducated.
I don't think Tarantino was trying to make, like, everybody's bringing it up. But it's like, I don't think Tarantino was even trying to make a film like that. He wasn't trying to make a film of this was what slavery was like. Because he can't make a film like that.
Tarantino.
Yeah, he's Tarantino.
Yeah, and I don't think he's, like, we were talking about this last night, like, he's not trying to bring awareness to slavery or anything, or make people remember this. It's just a setting like that, and something as goofy as, like, the old spaghetti westerns, he can do, like I was saying earlier, and bounce back and forth between fantasy and gritty reality, and it's not meant to be, I don't know how to put it. He's using it as a filmmaking tool to elicit a reaction from you. You know, if you run off to the library and you're like, man, I want to read about slavery, I've never really given it another thought, you know, but this horrible chapter in American history, that's fine, but ultimately he's a filmmaker and he's just trying to affect you with this movie. I don't think he's got an agenda. I don't know, maybe he does.
Yeah, no, I don't think he really, you know, does. I think, like, he makes revenge films. That's what Tarantino does. That's what he makes, crime films, and he makes revenge films, and that's what he's like. That's why I like his movies. Like, that's what he's best at. And it's like he, like you said, like he did it in a very good way. Like, he showcased it in a very realistic way, and I don't think he was disrespecting people at all by showcasing it in that way. And it's like, but I don't
Spike
think
Lee would have a...
he's having kittens right now.
Yeah.
If he was listening to me, he'd be like, ah. But it's like, I don't think he was trying to bring awareness, like you just said. Like, he was trying to make a good revenge movie. And what's better than having a black guy? And they say a lot in the movie. They're like, wow, you must really enjoy bounty hunting because you get to kill all these white guys. And he's like, hell yeah, I do. You know, like, it's just a sort of like, it's an adventure.
Like, real talk, I think that Spike Lee is just jealous he didn't think of it first. Like, hey, remember Do the Right Thing? That was a good movie. You know? I don't think he's really... I think that he just is kind of irked that Tarantino thought of it first and did it first. I mean, he's... I don't see this being a racist film.
Do you think people have a right to be offended now?
Definitely.
Like, it is kind of... It's abrasive.
It is abrasive. It certainly doesn't sugarcoat anything. I can see where sometimes, for some people, might think it's being lighthearted with it, with the contrast like you're talking about. But I don't think he's doing that to make light of the institution. If anything, it's the scenes where he's showing how awful it is are, you know, so gut-wrenching that I don't see how he could be doing that. I mean, there's a big difference in, you know, the end fight scene in Kill Bill Volume 1, where you got, like, dudes' arms, like, flying off and shit, and the Mandingo fight scene. I mean, one's fun to watch. One isn't fun to watch at all. Isn't fun to think about at all.
It's the two different types of violence. It's like we were just talking about.
But is Django, like, what you were saying about you have to be careful how we absorb things, like about the Holocaust or about slavery. Yeah. Is Django one of those films where it's got that kind of like a light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, no, because I was thinking about that because we were talking about last night, Private Talk. We were talking about it was private. No.
The Club of Private.
We were talking about how there's a lot of films where I took a Holocaust class and my teacher was saying, you know, you need to be careful about the way the media portrays the Holocaust and how it ended but sometimes how the movies end, there is always that glimmer of hope. And that leaves the audience feeling better about themselves because it's like, okay, well, there was that one person got away. And then they start thinking, well, maybe it's not so bad. And I was trying to compare that to, you know, this film, but then I was thinking about it, I was like, and like you said, he wasn't meaning to make a film to bring awareness about slavery. He was making a revenge film and tying in as much as he could as far as spaghetti westerns. He's doing classic Tarantino film, you know. And
Hercules Unchained.
Yeah, and he has a lot of references. It's just, when I was initially watching the film, it's very interesting. Like that one scene where where he's literally throwing off the shackles of slavery. Like, he's throwing off his cape. And then you see all the other ones, they do it too, and they mimic him because they're throwing. I didn't even know that was a comic reference, but I was like,
not comic. Hercules Unchained
oh,
is a movie.
There you go, Hercules Unchained. Like, I was like, I didn't even realize that was that reference. I just thought it was literal.
And like Superman busting through chains in the Golden Age.
That goofy outfit he wears at the beginning when he's pretending to be Dr.
Yeah,
that is so funny.
That's a reference too. There's a very famous painting called The Boy in Blue where he's wearing that exact same outfit. And it just goes from there because Murnau was a very famous German director during the 1920s. His most famous work is Nosferatu, directed a movie called The Boy in Blue. And Murnau was a director who did he invented panning basically, he invented long shots, and if you watch the film, the camera pans when he's in this goofy little boy in blue outfit with a gun, and he shoots one of the Brittle brothers. And another word for pan shot is the Unchained shot. Django Unchained, Unchained shot. He puts,
neat!
You know, you'd have to read, Wikipedia references to understand the references in this film. They're really obscure.
The more you know.
The more you know.
I'm sure there's even more in there. But yeah, I read that and I was like, yeah, I see that. That makes sense. But that's just what Tarantino does. He's such a cinema geek that he likes putting things in there like that in his movies. He can't resist it. So, what did you think when he shoots Laura, Calvin Candy's sister?
Funny.
Yeah, I just chuckled because you can almost see the rope yank her out of the doorway.
I don't think they really built upon her character. She just really wasn't a character, kind of. She's meant to be the character that, when the door when Schultz slams the door in her face, she's just suddenly like, oh. And then she, walks away. I just thought that's her. That's the end of her, usage, is sort of gimmicks like that in the movie.
She went to go eat some candy.
I know what you did. So would you say this is a very...
I get it now.
This is highbrow stuff, right?
So would you say this is a very masculine film, too? I mean, you only have two female characters in the whole film, and you don't really see much of either of them until the end.
No.
No?
Because it's all about love. I don't know. I just think his main thing is about love, so it's I didn't really see. I wasn't this fucking masculine-ass film. God damn it.
30 biceps.
Yeah.
30 biceps up.
Yeah. No, it didn't scream that to me. I enjoyed the film. I don't think it's his best, but I really liked it. I think it's up there.
So, did anybody think there was a connection between Dr. Schultz and Broomhilda? Was that...
I totally thought there was, when I was watching.
Because what was Broomhilda's origin again? Why was she able to speak German?
She was, a slave to a German lady.
Yeah, and the German lady wouldn't speak
German with her, so she...
Yeah. Because she was here in America.
Right.
Yeah.
On that note, it would be very unusual for Germans to own slaves. Most Germans at the time living in the United States were very much against slavery. So that's kind of weird, but... I think it was at a Comic-Con or something that Tarantino revealed that Django and Broomhilda's kid, her last name was Von Schaft or something. So he's the great-great-great-granddad of Shaft. in his canon.
Yeah, there's a comic book adaptation coming out from DC, no less.
Is it the Vertigo imprint, or is it...
It seems like it would be a Vertigo book, but everything I've read just says from DC Comics. But Vertigo is DC, so
right.
I imagine that'll be a Vertigo book, but you never know. They can just do an original hardcover or something. Django Unchained.
Really?
Yeah. It's supposed to be an adaptation of the movie plus more stuff.
Like what they did during the winter. And,
yeah, maybe we'll get some more bounty hunting.
Yeah.
I just hope we get more Dr. Schultz, you know?
Yeah, I know. I was so bummed when his character died. I wanted him to, like, pop back up whenever...
Like, I'm alive! And they pull out katanas, and we're like, oh, the fucking shark is down there.
Lazarus pit. Candyland was built on a Lazarus pit.
I do think his character had to die, though, for Django to really come into his own.
Yeah.
I think that was necessary. Like, I knew, as soon as he took on a mentor role, I was like, at some point in this movie, this guy's gonna bite it. Because that's what always happens to mentors and heroes. The mentors never survive.
Yeah, the mentor can't be like, I taught you, and you go, and I'm gonna, you know, get a crone over here. Like,
time to find my other prodigy.
Because without the mentor dying, there can't be a no scene.
Calvin!
Same with that one.
But Steven, to me, was even a worse villain than Candy was. Candy, this is going to sound a little weird, but I felt a little sorry for him the same way I'd feel sorry for a rabid dog.
Yeah, he didn't know any better.
He didn't know any fucking better. Like he said, I was raised here my whole life. So he just treats them as objects naturally. He isn't aware you're not supposed to do that. You can't fix that in somebody like that. The best you can do is put a bullet in their brain, like you would with a rabid dog. But Steven, I mean, he abandoned everyone else to support this hideous institution, basically just to save himself, it seems.
Yeah, he was trying to work out the best means for him.
Yeah.
And so that's what he did. I mean, he's a real asshole character. Like, he's really funny, but at the same time, you're just like, damn. Like I said, like, I wanted him to, like, turn around and be like, Django Monkey, you out. Like, it didn't happen.
Because, do you think that the casting of Samuel L. Jackson in that role is supposed to have kind of a meta effect? Like, you see Samuel L. and you're like, come on, man, why is he a slave? Like, you want to see him rise up with Django.
Yeah.
But do you think he's messing with the audience's preconceived notions of, like, a Samuel L. Jackson character? Like,
I think so.
Kind of like, I'm going to take the BAMF and I'm going to make him the head house slave for Calvin Candy.
I think part of his resentment might lie with him being almost a failed Django himself. Maybe he tried to do what he did, and now he's stuck in this, self-serving fuck everybody else role. Because if you notice in the film, Kenny very rarely gets his hands dirty. Always someone else doing it for him. I mean, he doesn't set the dogs on the guy. Someone does it for him. He doesn't order people to be whipped or have their dicks cut off. Steven does it for him, He puts himself in this he distances himself from the dirty work in that role. And that makes Steven even worse. Because he's like the head honcho house enforcer for Candy. He's really running the show.
It blew me away when they're talking about how they had to put Broomhilda in the hot box. And the way he's talking about it, it's like the babysitter telling mom, well, I had to spank her, It's just, oh no, she has to sit in that box for 10 days.
Yeah, just crazy. I mean, do you think that Calvin Candy as a character wouldn't have been quite the way he was if he was out more often in the actual world than just Candyland? Because I think that growing up there just his whole life probably really warped his whole outlook, mentality.
Yeah, he's a product of slavery as much as, Cotton was.
Yeah.
Like, there's these wackos, these second, third generation slave owners. They had to just be totally distanced from, what they were really doing.
But that whole setting, just the environment he was in, that was spread out through the whole region. Where could he go and not see that?
It's true. But yeah, I think Leonardo DiCaprio said himself that he had a lot of trouble playing Calvin Candy. He said in an interview, and I'm paraphrasing, something like, he was the most vile, disgusting character I've ever played.
Yeah, because I was telling Chris, like, I thought it was really funny that DiCaprio played him, because he's, like, one of the nicest guys. Like, he, like, contribute, like, I was telling Chris, like, he's, like...
You know him?
Yeah, we talk. No, like, all the stuff that he does, like, he's very involved in, like, the environment. Like, he's just an overall, like, good guy. Like, he's involved in all these organizations, helping kids and stuff like that. So I just thought it was funny when I saw him, like, playing, like, a plantation owner. Like, it took me a while to get that sort of out of my head, and it wasn't until I saw him, like, freak out. I was like, whoa. Like,
they're all having a nice dinner.
You had to go fuck it up.
Now, do you think the part where he does have his outburst, and you notice his hand's bleeding?
Right.
That had to be like an improvisable thing, like he slammed something and then he cut
Right.
his hand.
He actually says that was an accident. He just kept him going before.
So, I thought so.
When he breaks the glass, I guess, or somehow.
Didn't he smash?
Yeah.
I forget.
Well, the camera kind of obscures it because it's focusing more on Dr. Schultz and Django.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The table's very flat. You're not
Right.
like looking at the table from above. Yeah.
But it's pretty clear he breaks it somehow,
Mm-hmm.
and that cuts his hand open.
He just like grabs a handkerchief and wraps it up and just keeps moving with the scene. The show must go on, which I thought was a very.
Oh, that's
cool
golden when you have something like that.
Oh, yeah.
It's like,
I felt like it was kind of out of place. That's why I kind of noticed it. 'Cause he looked at it a couple times and was like, "Oh shit, this is really bleeding."
he'll break out of his act. Cut.
But he mentioned it too. He's like, I have to go and get angry and cut my hand or something. I think he mentions it.
He improvs a line in there somewhere
Yeah.
about getting so angry. Angry.
So were there any more points from your notes you wanted to... anything else you wanted to run?
Just a few interesting things. The guy who played Django in the first Django film in 1966 was actually in this movie.
Yeah.
He was the guy that was sitting with Calvin Candy when both of their slaves were fighting it out. And, he has like one line of dialogue with Django, Jamie Foxx, in this film, where he's like, what's your name? He says, Django. And he asks how you spell it. He says, yeah, my name, the D is silent. He says, I know. I was like, that's a weird scene. Like,
yeah,
there.
I thought that too. I was like, that guy's important. I don't know why, but he...
Wink and a nod.
Yeah.
Also, Mandingo, the film about slave fighting from, I think, the 70s?
Yes.
The main character from Mandingo is in Django Unchained as well. And I believe he's the guy who's ripped apart by dogs, but
I think so.
I could be wrong. Yeah.
Also, they used a real plantation house. That's one of the few that's left in the United States, actually. It's been around since 1790.
Not anymore. They blew it up, though.
I'm sure that was a dollhouse that they shot with some trickery.
Sorcery! Which I thought was kind of cool. I didn't expect them to use an actual plantation house. I didn't even think there were that many left that you could film in,
Yeah.
But I guess there's a couple. So, overall, did you guys enjoy the film?
I loved it. I saw it in 2013, but if I had seen it on its release date in 2012, that would have been my best movie. 2012. I liked it.
Even more than Avengers?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I liked it more than fucking Dark Knight Rises, all that goofy shit we saw last year. This blows those two movies out of the water. Bang, bang!
It was. I really enjoyed it. And like I said, 3 hours, that the movie aired, or preview showed, it was a pleasant surprise. It just kept giving me more. It didn't leave me, wanting more. After it was done, I was like, alright, cool. Got this girl back. I'm gonna go get some popcorn.
And he actually said that, I read somewhere that this is actually his most successful film.
I thought so.
Yeah, Inglourious Bastards got like 100 and blah 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 million, and this one was already surpassing that. And I think he's being very smart by putting his movies out during Christmas.
He got 3 or 4 Oscar nominations too. I know for screenplay and for
he did win those. He I think he won screenplay, and the guy who plays Schultz, he won.
He got Best Supporting.
Did he get Best Supporting Actor? Really?
See, I'm not up on the Oscars. I don't know what got won.
I think it was.
I know Les Mis won Best Picture, right?
Yeah, and then you said screenplay or screenwriting? I don't know.
Screenplay, yeah.
And then
Did he really win that?
he won. Yeah, he won a
I'm
Golden
glad.
Globe.
That was really.
That was a good script, man. Good.
No, I really think what's his name? Christopher
Waltz.
Yeah, I thought he was really good in this movie. Like, he was by far my favorite character.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was interesting that, the last movie we see with the Tarantino film, he plays, the antithesis of
Yeah, he plays that
Dr. King Schultz. He plays
German dude.
a fucking Nazi,
I find it hilarious that Tarantino did, still appear in his own film, but ends up getting blown up from Dynamite. That was a cool little cameo that he did for himself.
Oh yeah, there's just from watching the film one time, I saw 4 people from his other films. I was just going off in my head. I was like, oh, that guy's been in Natural Born Killers. That guy's been in one of the guys who was with Tarantino. One of the Australian dudes was actually in Natural Born Killers. And then
I haven't seen that one actually.
Not Natural Born Killers.
Yeah, that's
Kill Bill.
And Natural Born Killers is directed by Oliver Stone.
Yeah, not Natural
He wrote
Born
the
Killers.
script, right?
Kill Bill. I saw a whole bunch of people from his other movies, but yeah.
Shit. Any closing comments?
If you haven't seen Django Unchained, now's the time before it leaves theaters, and you have to wait 18 months for it to come out in DVD.
It never takes that long.
It's a physically exhausting film, in the sense that it really takes you through emotional highs and lows very quickly. So it's one of those things you have to be ready for. But if you're prepped for it, it's great. I really enjoyed it.
I mean, just be ready to go see a good Tarantino film.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Overall.
A good film.
Yeah.
I think it kind of broke away from just being a Tarantino movie. I think this could appeal to a wider audience than some of this other stuff. Well, I don't know. The subject matter might shoot it in the leg.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's just...
I just thought the story is simple, though.
Yeah.
There's no jumping back and forth in time. You're literally following Django. Anyway, that's closing comments. I don't know. What's still going on. Okay, if you'd like to contact us, clubofheroes@gmail.com. Check out our blog, clubofheroes.blogspot.com, where some of the gentlemen in the room here, and maybe the lady, will be providing content.
Oh.
Saucy.
Saucy content.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos.
And talky parts. Lots of talky parts.
The end.
Forever.
Fiend.
This is the last episode of the Club of Heroes. Until next time!
You drag a coffin around, you drag a coffin around, you drag a coffin around. so fucking insincere. Yeah.